when I heard banjo music, I was like, I don't know what this is supposed to be. I don't know what I can't imagine the body playing this. And what are we playing here? It's a drum with a chair leg in it.
Greetings, banjo friends. Howdy, banjo neighbors. Welcome to the Picky Fingers Banjo Podcast. I'm your host, Keith Billick, and really happy to have you joining me here for the podcast all about banjos and the people who love them. And of course, as always, I need to give an extra special thanks to this episode's VIP supporter of the show. You can become a VIP supporter by heading over to patreon.com/banjopodcast. That is the way to contribute a few measly dollars per month, but it really does help keep this show on the tracks, as they say. And the VIP supporter of this episode is Lee Burlick. Lee makes his home in Round Hill, Virginia. He grew up as a heavy metal fan, but now that he's an empty nester, I think he wanted to just up the intensity a bit and switched to banjo. So, Lee, welcome to the banjo world. Happy to have you as a listener and extremely happy to have you as the VIP supporter of today's episode. So thank you so much. And once again, you can become a VIP supporter by heading over to patreon.com/banjopodcast and also find out about the excellent rewards that are in store for you for doing that. You can also get a hold of me. Email me at pickyfingersbanjopodcast@gmail.com or follow me on all the socials. I'm on the Facebook, the Instagram. I think I even have a TikTok account, although you probably won't see much from me on there. But yeah, always happy to hear from you that way. And before we get started, I do have one additional special thanks, and that is to Dylan Rogers at the Robin Theater in Lansing, Michigan. And thanks to Dylan for accommodating this interview. I have been to the Robin Theater several times as both a performer and an audience member, and can say that it's always a special evening, and Dylan does a wonderful job curating a calendar of amazing performances and events. So thanks again, Dylan, and everyone check out the Robin Theater in Lansing.
Going down to the catfish hole, catfish got my hook and pole, hello Banjo Sam. My name's Banjo Sam. We're gonna play now, Banjo Sam. A little bit old Miss Open Sawyer. Play it then.
Today's featured guest is Hubby Jenkins. Hubby is a captivating performer of traditional American roots music. He brings a strong vocal style and multi-instrumental skills, including, of course, plenty of banjo, to every performance. Hubby is best known as a former member of the award-winning Carolina Chocolate Drops and continues his musical journey touring the country as a mostly solo performer. And here to tell you all about that musical journey is the man himself. So put your hands together and give a warm Picky Fingers Banjo Podcast welcome to Hubby Jenkins.
I'm Hubby Jenkins. I'm from Brooklyn, New York. I play old-time music and talk about black people. That's my tag at every show, just to let people know.
Is that on the business card?
It's their chance to get out, before it's too late. But yeah, how did I get into playing the banjo? I grew up in Brooklyn. I played alto saxophone from the age of 5 until high school. In high school, I encountered a jazz teacher I really didn't like and switched to classical music, started playing the cello. From there, I learned I could read bass music. I started playing the bass. Then I was playing bass in bands with friends. Heard Bob Dylan for the first time. Bought a guitar. Quit my job. Right after hearing Skip James, I was like, okay, I think I want to play music.
Oh, dang.
And so my introduction comes mostly through country blues to the banjo. I started with that, and that was all my first encounters with pre-war American music, country blues. And I would listen to Harry Smith Folk Anthology and skip all the banjo recordings.
Oh, really?
And then I was reading a book, and the book was like, the banjo as an African instrument. I was like, wait, what? And that piqued my interest. And the universe gave me a banjo. Like someone was like, oh, I have an extra banjo, just take it. And that started me on my banjo journey.
That's amazing. And that was all by the time you were done with high school, or that was afterward by that point?
Yeah, by this point I'm like 19. No, it's 20.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people know of you these days as a multi-instrumentalist, and you just took us through 3 or 4 different instruments and styles. Is that a thing with you, that you tend to just jump from one thing to the next and get really into something? And is that just kind of how you are? You get fascinated by something and just dive right into it and switch gears?
I guess so. Yeah, I do get distracted by shiny objects very easily. I think that I wanted to play music, and I didn't really know what that meant. I didn't know what a career in music looks like. What is a musician? And then also growing up in Brooklyn, New York, when I didn't know about old time music or country blues. Like my knowledge of the blues went maybe to the 70s,
like B.B. King or something.
Exactly,
Yeah. Okay.
or Stevie Ray Vaughan or something like this.
Yeah.
And then when it came to like fiddle and banjo, I didn't hear it really at all. And then part of my family comes from North Carolina, and I did summers down in Reedsville, North Carolina, but it was a lot of gospel music. So I'd hear, at the time it was like Kirk Franklin and whatever else my great aunts and them were listening to. But yeah, I guess to wrap up the answer to the question is that I do bounce between different things, but for me, they are the same, right? I like to tell people I play pre-war American music, or I play traditional American music, or American roots music. And that is Appalachian fiddle and banjo, or Piedmont fiddle and banjo, or country blues, or early jazz, or rag, or spirituals.
Yeah.
I feel like that's all in the mix for me. So it doesn't feel so chaotic or distracting.
So you didn't have like buds that you were hanging with learning how to play this stuff. It sounds like it was just you and your CD collection and just whatever the fascination was.
I did have a group of friends. When I first started getting into country blues, we all got into folk music and blues music in different ways. Friends who we'd wake up in the morning and drink a pot of coffee and try to figure out a Charlie Patton song together, stuff like that. And some went on to be singer-songwriters, some went on to keep playing blues, yada, yada. And then I got some banjo not lessons, but like friends who played old-time music. Yeah, but I would say that a lot of it was solitary, especially my banjo playing more than anything else. It was something that I never felt fully competent to bring out into places, so I never brought it to jams. I never did it at shows, really. For up until I joined Carolina Chocolate Drops, I just played banjo in my house, or like a friend would like come over and show me like how to play, I don't know, Southward Mountain or something like that, So it was, I don't know if you use the word solitary, but I'll say solitary kind of thing.
I think I might have.
Yeah. And also, like being black and playing the banjo, forget it. I thought I was the only one in the whole world when I was first starting to play it. So you feel very solitary.
Yeah, especially in New York, I guess. And then you mentioned that you talk about black people and that you skipped all the banjo tracks until you found out that it was an African instrument. So it sounds like maybe even more than the sound of it, it was like some sense of kinship that you had with it. Does that track at all? Is that what it amounted to?
I got my first banjo lesson from a woman named Lydia Martin of the Martin family of Maryland. And she also gave me the banjo. And she taught me how to play clawhammer and gave me a clawhammer lesson. And I picked it up pretty quickly. It made sense to my body. I've sometimes described it as like an electric light from heaven shining down on me, which I stole from an old Polk Miller song. And so when I heard banjo songs before that, it didn't make sense to me what was happening. I could hear, Mance Lipscomb playing guitar and be like, oh, his thumb is just hitting that E,
Right.
But when I heard banjo music, I was like, I don't know what this is supposed to be. I don't know what I can't imagine the body playing this.
Yeah.
Until I got that clawhammer lesson, I was like, oh, okay. And then when I started to listen to the music again, I was like, okay, this makes sense. I can visualize it better.
Gotcha. You've mentioned fiddle and banjo and stuff and old time. How much of a distinction were you making between what you called the pre-war Americana? What was the term you said?
Pre-war American music.
American music, and what most people would call like old time music.
At that time, I did not have that concept yet.
Okay.
For me, it was like, especially before I learned about the banjo, it's like black people did blues and jazz, white people did old time, whatever
Country
that is,
and
and country and bluegrass. And learning that the banjo was a black instrument kind of cracked everything open for me in a way. I'm like, okay, so the banjo is a black instrument and a lot of white people play it now and I associate it with white people. What does that mean? What was the interaction then? What is the influence? Who created what? What does that really matter? What does that, it allowed me to critically think about the music.
Right.
And so then at that point, it develops and turns into this idea of like, it's just American music, right? All of this fits under this category, I don't know, there's Rocky Road, there's pistachio, there's coffee, there's chocolate, but it's all ice cream,
Right, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you didn't have a concept of what it would mean to be a musician as a career. When did that part change? When did you start to see that was something that you wanted to take more seriously?
I'll make a long story short, but I had a girl break my heart a little bit. And a friend of mine who I was playing in a band with, the drummer, made me a mix CD. And I was really sad and put on the mix CD. And the very first track was Skip James' Devil Got My Woman Blues.
My best friend, but he got lucky, don't tobacco again.
Before then I was listening to a lot of 60s stuff and then I was into Zeppelin and Hendrix and guitars with very big sound and big amps. And when I heard that song, it was as powerful as all of that to me.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want to do that. That's possible. One person, one instrument can emote, can breathe that largely large. And I remember sitting on the couch and I was just like, okay, I'm not going to make a lot of money, probably, but I want to make enough money to play music and travel. How do I go about doing that? And so I just started busking, which I guess I fulfilled the dream very quickly. I went to the subway and I made enough money to travel on the subway.
Yeah.
But that was when I think I just thought about it. I'm just going to start playing and see where that goes.
I'm always really interested in hearing about people who put in some time busking, because I think that's a unique experience and teaching learning opportunity, rather, in terms of you just see it play out in very real time. What gets people's attention? What type of thing is successful? What was your experience with that, and what do you feel like you learned from that exercise?
I agree with what you said so far. I also was able, when you're busking in the subway, your audience changes every 5 to 7 minutes. So it'd be like a song at home where it's like, I'm not getting this song right. So I would go busk and I would play it every 5 to 7 minutes.
Yeah. And it's not repetitive because it's a completely different audience.
Completely new audience. And, there were some days where I'd play one song for 2 hours. And so I really used it for practicing in that way as well. Yeah, I developed a persona, developed techniques vocally, even, licks that I knew could catch attention. I started playing the kazoo, which is just loud and annoying.
Yeah.
So that helped.
Get more specific. You're saying you developed playing techniques and vocal techniques. What are we talking about here?
Sure. When I was doing all of this is all happening on guitar. So I do, a lot of growling. I was very a lot of that sort of sound. I was listening to a lot of Charlie Patton. I could not hit Skip James notes, so I went to Charlie Patton, who's a very gravelly, low blues singer. And then the kazoo, which is a lot of I used to play with finger picks a lot, thumb pick and one metal finger pick on my index finger. And so it'd be a lot of heavy, heavy strumming. You can't do a lot of intricate things when you're out in the street.
There's no subtlety, yeah.
So a lot of my playing had a lot of that strumming, which would be more akin to something like Robert Johnson's Hot Tamales and the Red Hot.
I'm gonna upset your back, gonna put your kidneys to sleep. I'll do the breakaway in your living there, your heart to beat by now. Hot Tamales on the red hot. Yes, you got on a sale, I mean. Yes, you got on a sale, yeah. Hot Tamales and the red hot. Yes, you got on a sale. Hot Tamales and the red hot. Yes, you got on a sale. You know, grandma, that's not grandpa too. Well, I wonder what in the world.
You know, the way he plays on that is
Kinda
really
swingy.
really
Yeah.
swingy, really percussive. Not, you know, the bass strings are being hit, but it's really about that feel.
Yeah.
And the raucousness. So I brought a lot of that. That was a lot of what was pulled out of me busking.
Very cool.
And I'll add, you didn't ask, but I'll add that, you know, when I started playing more, you know, a lot of my first venue gigs were coffee shops and et cetera, I couldn't be doing that stuff. So I had to unlearn, like, you know, if somebody was sitting in a coffee like, wah, wah, and they'd be like, okay, I got to learn how to, well, you know, work
Doing
on
the
my
growls,
finger. Yeah.
That's funny.
I was like, oh, I can make money busking. I can make money playing music. There were times where, like, my rent would be due. It's like, hey, the rent's due tomorrow. I'm like, oh, okay. And I'd go out and busk until I had my rent.
Put in a 12-hour day or something.
You know, back then, you know, my rent was $250 a month or whatever. But, you know,
Brooklyn?
I was living in Queens at that point. I once had my lowest rent I've ever paid was $135 a month.
Wow.
But I shared a room with 3 other musicians. Not an apartment, a room. But that's a whole nother story.
Yeah, I don't think I want to hear that podcast.
Yeah. But just to throw that out there.
You know, I know that eventually you caught up with the Carolina Chocolate Drops. Is that jumping ahead too far, or was that one of your first main opportunities to get a chance to do more traveling besides to and from your home on the subway?
No, we're pretty much there. We can get to that in a couple of sentences. You know, you asked me about my group of friends playing music, and I had friends we were all into country blues, and some friend of mine ended up getting a show in the back of a Thai restaurant on McDougal Street.
Okay.
Making a long story very short. And so we started running a show. Every Wednesday night, we had the stage, and we would just do a folk show. And people could come and play country blues, play bluegrass, sing their own songs, yada, yada. And so that's where I started to play a lot on stage, mostly playing for my friends at first, but then people started getting into this thing. And there were some people there, Karen, who came with her husband, who was the brother of the manager of the Carolina Chocolate Drops, which started in 2005.
Yeah.
And so I knew them. They introduced me to Tim Duffy, who runs something called Music Maker Relief Foundation, which helps older, broke, itinerant musicians, mostly blues musicians in North Carolina get gigs and get their music out. He was the first manager of Carolina Chocolate Drops. And so he invited me down for a festival called Chicory Hills, which was my first festival I ever played. And this was all solo. I had also met Dom Flemons around that same time, around the time they started the band. He was just like traveling around New York, met one of my roommates, and I tripped over him on my living room floor. I'm like, who are you? He's like, I'm Dom. You know, like, okay, cool. So I had both those connections to Carolina Chocolate Drops from knowing Dom and working with the manager.
The manager, yeah.
So this is around 2005, 2006. And then once, you know, Justin Robinson quit the band about 3 years later, and I got the call from Dom and the manager, like, hey, do you want to play fiddle in our band? And I was like, I don't know how to play the fiddle. And they're like, we'll call you back. And then they called me back, like, hey, do you want to play banjo in the band? I was like, okay, yeah, sure, you know. So that's pretty much how that came about.
And had you followed their career up to that point? Were you familiar with
Not at all.
What they did? Okay.
No.
You just knew that someone was calling you that needed a banjo guy or a fiddle guy / banjo guy.
Dom and I, we'd stayed friends. I'd like, you know, he would, whenever he came to New York, would either crash with me or we'd kick it, you know.
Yeah.
So we knew each other that way. I didn't really know the others in the band very well. I'd seen them play twice in Manhattan, but they played, you know, this North Carolina old-time fiddle and banjo music.
Trouble, trouble, trouble in my mind. Trouble don't kill me, I'm strong enough to die. Don't get trouble in your mind, don't get trouble in your mind. Don't get trouble in your mind, don't you get trouble in your mind.
And I wasn't super tuned into it yet. You know, even once I got my banjo, I was still like, I just play it at home. I'm still country blues, Hubby Jenkins, you know?
Yeah.
So I never really tapped into what they were doing very hard until I got the call.
So when you first started, you mentioned in passing before that you maybe spent some summers in North Carolina. In the back of my mind, I was kind of like, ooh, that's gotta be a connection, but that didn't have anything to do with the fact that you caught up with these folks.
No, it's just really small world, I guess.
Well, the thing that you just mentioned was actually one of the main things I was wondering is anyone who knows their history, they're very associated with the mentorship of Joe Thompson and his guidance. And it seems like you didn't have that because you weren't there. I'm wondering if, like, was that an issue that you didn't train under this person who was like very pivotal in forming how they were sounding?
I don't know. Issue might be a strong word. I didn't get to spend the time with Joe Thompson. I guess we could say was a black fiddler from Mebane, North Carolina, who played in this specific or maybe unique style of African-American Piedmont old-time string band music, dance music. When I joined the band, I did like a little audition. I played mandolin, played guitar, had my banjo there, got in, and I was like, okay. They're like, we're going on tour in whatever it was, 3 months or whatever it's going to be. I'm like, cool. What are we doing? What should I learn? And they just mailed me all of their CDs.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I'm figuring some stuff out. And we did some rehearsals, obviously, right before the touring. But like that was kind of a funny joke of like, here's everything we've done. And I gravitated naturally towards the album they did with Joe Thompson, and was really interested in that stuff. So I got to learn from the people who directly learned from him, and we spent a lot of time like perfecting that, learning, how to hits, what the hits feel like, what's the anticipatory aspects of this, how do we find the groove, and what makes this unique from other fiddle and banjo music. That was something that we spent time on, and I definitely developed on stage as much as I did off stage. So it wasn't really an issue, but it was something that I learned and was taught to me lovingly,
Yeah, of course. And you were also learning all this material from a different instrument that you were going to have to, you're learning music that has fiddle on it for you to then, I guess, do whatever you want, I guess, with whatever instrument you chose.
In the original lineup of the band, Rhiannon played the banjo. And then when I joined, she switched to playing violin. So she became the main fiddler of the band, and I became the banjo, guitar, mandolin, bones.
It was like literally musical chairs.
Literally musical chairs. So yeah, I wasn't understanding, but yeah, that hole was filled. And, there's like an old video. I was looking up for some stuff the other day, and I saw it of like, the two of us playing in like an Airbnb, I think when we were making our first record, and like playing Ryro's house, and like we had spent a while, which was like, no, like this, and then played it on the fiddle, But yeah, it was really just learning this different language, which, especially in our first years, like we were doing like 250 days on the road or something like that.
That's insane.
We were playing a lot of shows, I had to get good or drown at that point.
Yeah. I got to think of a way to trick you into playing or singing something. What is something that maybe you could demonstrate that would, I don't know, reflect what some of your influences were at that point?
Well, I mentioned Ryro's house, so let's just play that one. How about that? Which comes from Joe Thompson. My favorite Joe recordings are him with Odell Thompson, who was his cousin, on the banjo. And Ryro's house, I think ended up being, I forget if it's the opener, but I think it's on, oh God, I can't remember the name of the album made with Chocolate Drops. It's on the album that we made. So I'll play it. I'm tuning to double C for you banjo players out there.
Yes, please.
So Ryro's house. speak to me. Eat up old rye roast me left over bone. Piece of me, eat up old rye roast me left old rye roast bone.
Awesome. Love it.
Cool. Yeah, and so that's Raro's house. And I think some of the things that stick out to me is, it's dance music. Always have to remind people, this is square dance. Joe Thompson would call for dances and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And I don't know if it's what the term would be. I don't know what those guys would call it, but it's this anticipatory feel. So when I have that... It's the way that fifth fret comes in.
Yeah. Bit of a push. Yeah.
Push. Yeah, it's good. So I always, whenever I'm teaching someone this song, it's always teaching that push. Teaching, we don't want to...
Yeah.
It's
a little
really
too square. Yeah.
It's too square. So that's kind of like that anticipatory, that push is very unique to Joe's music, or characteristic of the music. And then those hits. And that's me kind of brushing down, hitting with my fingers, coming back up with my back of my thumb, and coming back down with my fingers again, landing in my claw hammer position with my thumb ready on the drone.
Resting on that.
So I'm brush, land, used in a bunch of Joe Thompson songs. So those two things really I had to learn, and they're very feely, they're very emphasis kind of things. So learning that, because the music itself melodically is not very complex. It's about groove. It's about that feel and that groove. So keeping it there and putting all the notes in the right place is really what's key.
Sorry to interrupt this incredible episode, folks, but I couldn't go any longer without telling you about a few of the official sponsors of the Picky Fingers Banjo Podcast. Are you looking to improve your playing by learning directly from one of the world's most talented players and instructors? It sounds too good to be true, but it's a reality over at pegheadnation.com. With Peghead Nation's streaming video courses in banjo, guitar, mandolin, fiddle, dobro, upright bass, and ukulele, you can learn bluegrass, old time, and plenty of other styles. PegheadNation.com features a great lineup of courses. This is just the banjo section. You can learn beginning banjo or bluegrass banjo with Bill Evans, old time banjo with Bruce Molsky, the banjo according to Danny Barnes, contemporary bluegrass banjo with Wes Corbett, and banjo in the style of Earl Scruggs or J.D. Crowe with Bill Evans. Now, regardless of which one you choose, it's going to have high-quality video and audio production, downloadable notation and tab, play-along tracks, and plenty of tunes. And the best part is that listeners of the Picky Fingers Banjo Podcast get their first month for absolutely free. Go to pegheadnation.com, use the promo code PickyFingers, all one word, all lowercase, at checkout. That's pegheadnation.com, and the promo code is pickyfingers to get your first month free. The Picky Fingers Banjo Podcast is also sponsored by Elderly Instruments. Elderly isn't just a retail store, it is an institution for banjo players and string musicians of all types. Family owned since 1972, the good folks at Elderly have discovered that the secret to becoming the world's most trusted source for new, used, and vintage instruments, it isn't that complicated. You provide the best selection of high-quality instruments and accessories for all price ranges, and then you stand behind those products with the industry's best customer service. If you can't make it to their Lansing, Michigan showroom, that's okay too. They ship worldwide and are always available to help. Visit elderly.com or call them up at 517-372-7880. And speaking of family businesses, Eric Sullivan of Sullivan Banjos knows a thing or two about that. The Sullivan family has been at the forefront of the banjo-making world for decades now. I bought my Sullivan banjo brand new in 2004, from Elderly Instruments, by the way, and I swear that it sounds better and better every time I play it. The great news is that the famous tone and craftsmanship of Sullivan Banjos is still available. Give Eric a call at 502-365-5022 to discuss building your dream banjo today, or visit sullivanbanjo.com. That's 502-365-5022 or sullivanbanjo.com.
The Picky Fingers Banjo Podcast is sponsored by Bluegrass Country Radio, America's oldest bluegrass, old-time, and Americana station. Shows are curated by real DJs, not computer algorithms. From classic bluegrass and traditional country to the best current artists, you'll find it all streaming at bluegrasscountry.org and on the station's free smartphone apps. That's bluegrasscountry.org.
Another thing that I'm a big fan of regarding your playing is just your sense of rhythm. You know, a bluegrasser like me, we're drawn to Earl Scruggs because he has this machine gun style right hand technique, and it's just this incessant ra-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. You kind of have the same thing going with your claw hammer style. It's very forward leaning, it's very precise. Talk about your sense of rhythm and where that might come from.
Ooh, I mean, it definitely comes from having 3 to 5 cups of coffee a day. Yeah. That helps.
You've switched to tea at this point, I can see.
It's tea Earl Grey hot, so still getting my fix. I guess, when you learn about, when you're playing the claw hammer style, for me, the importance was that gallop. Bum biggie, bum biggie, bum biggie, bum biggie. Mm-hmm. I've changed my bum ditties to bum biggies for obvious reasons, but
in tribute,
And so it's I like to describe it as like I'm hopping on my bike. Like once, we're selling the song, we're getting off the bike. Might be a bad way to think about it, but I think that's part of how my rhythmic sense starts. Like I'm kicking in, I'm starting, the machine is going.
Yeah.
And as I've gotten, I don't know, I was going to say better. Yeah, I've gotten better. As I've gotten better at playing the banjo, improvising, feeling comfortable to throw in different licks, feeling comfortable to slur a note, to delay a note, to hit it when I feel like it, to add different accents within that rhythm. Once I establish it, you can feel those different pulls, even if they're just subtle, if they're slight. When you're playing with other people, it's different ways of pushing them or accenting what they're doing. So being able to find that in how... with my rhythm so locked in, it's easy to find those little moments.
Yeah, it gives you a lot of, I don't know how to explain it, a lot of like guideposts to pivot off of or something like that. Yeah, that's really cool.
And I guess the last one, I was just trying to make was like making room for improvisation while playing. I think it's fun to play and you can do it without being distracting. And, you go to a lot of jams and everyone just is, there's, the beauty of the hypnotic, 5, 10, 20 times through the tune.
The trancey thing,
but like, you gotta give it a little flourish, give it a little taste, give it a little hit, drop out. Just hit a string. Don't put it in too many drones, let your freak flag fly when you're playing. And I think part of my sensibility is finding freedom to do that while keeping my rhythm steady.
I mean, the next thing I was going to ask is whether there were other particular stylistic elements that you view as like important parts of your style. But maybe what you just said is kind of it, is having this bag of tools, I guess we'll call them, that you can deploy. But I don't know, what do you have to say about that? Are there other things that come up that you think are important?
Bag of tools. I've been doing a lot of teaching, a lot more teaching lately, and having to break down things that I do and being like, oh, yeah, I guess this is why I do it.
Yeah.
Which has been fun for me, and I think I'm imparting it properly or digestibly. I'll rewind a little bit and say, when I was talking about that show that would happen in the back of this Thai restaurant on McDougal Street when I was in my early 20s, I met Peter Stamfel of the Holy Modal Rounders, John Cohen of New Law City Ramblers, other people like Pat Conti, Citizen Kafka, who's passed on. John Cohen's also passed on. And they had a band, and I played before them at one night, and they were just like, this guy, what's up? You're cool. And I started spending more time with them, and I played in a band with Peter Stamfel for a while. People who don't know Peter Stamfel, him and Steven Weber, I believe, started a band called the Holy Modal Rounders, where they invented freak folk. I don't want to say that they were high, but there might have been drugs in the mix. But it was psychedelic folk. And when I started to play with him, I was really intent on, I want to sound like the record. I would play them and I'm going to, I didn't have a slower downer back then. So it was really just going back and really trying to get every single lick. And Peter broke me from that. He was just like, no, the energy, and it's you, and you're alive now, and inject you into it. If people want to hear exactly how Roscoe Holcomb played it, they can listen to Roscoe Holcomb. How do you play it? How do we play it? What does it sound like when we play it on a Friday night and it's 5 degrees outside? And we would do recordings, and it'd be one take or the second take. If there were mistakes or whatever, it's like, no, but the energy was right on this one. And that was a lesson that really, really helped me. I took to heart. When I joined Chocolate Drops, I had to learn things, and definitely there were expectations there of where to fit in. But once I felt comfortable on songs, I went back to that ideology of who am I while playing this song, and how do I fit that in there? And sometimes it works, and sometimes it don't work. Right. I play solo a lot now, so when it don't work, I just do it twice so it doesn't sound like a mistake. Yeah. And then keep it moving.
That's how you planned it.
But feeling that freedom to experiment is also important, and I feel that whenever I'm playing any song.
That's great. I love that. I've also noticed that you use to great effect the percussive abilities of the banjo head. And in bluegrass world, tapping the head is no. But you do it, and it's part of the instrument. Was that something that just happened along with your technique, or is that something you had to work on to actually integrate that into your sound?
Man, you bluegrassers have so many rules. You
I
gotta
know.
do this roll and then
We're
this
so
roll.
uptight.
Don't touch the head.
Don't touch
What kind of get these picks going? Yeah.
Just do it like Earl. That's the only one rule you need.
It's something that I notice about my playing. So when I'm doing my claw hammer, it's you have your bum biggie down up.
Yeah.
And on my downs, my thumb, I think over time, whenever you come down, you want to land on your drone string. And I think over time, it just started moving closer and closer to my body until one day I noticed it. Maybe sitting in a studio or somebody was like, what's that sound? Are you going to be doing that? And I was like, yeah, I am going to be doing it. And I love it about my playing. And
I do too.
And,
yeah, it's cool.
Every once in a while, it's like, if I want to do something a little gentler, I might come off of it. But I think it adds a lot more. And what are we playing here? It's a drum with a chair leg in it. Mm-hmm. So I think it also helps to pull out that percussiveness aspect of it. But it's definitely something that I didn't purposefully do. It's something that I noticed I was starting to do and then fostered and allowed to keep going.
So that's your thumb doing that.
Yeah.
I guess when I just listened to you, and me not being a clawhammer player, maybe I always assumed that it was your fingers flying into it.
No.
Interesting.
You know, I'm sorry. That's me experimenting. I think
Yeah.
for the most part, when I'm playing on my inner strings on the second and third string,
Oh, yeah. You wouldn't
That's
be
all
able to
thumb.
do it. Yeah.
when I get to my top string, it's possible, but I'm really just focusing on my thumb.
Yeah.
My thumb is keeping that time.
No, I was mostly just remarking that it was my counterintuitiveness that, was surprised to hear that.
Yeah, I wish I didn't finger pick for a very long time. I got into like some Gus Cannon stuff. Do you know about Gus Cannon?
No.
Gus Cannon was a black banjo player from, I don't know if he's from Memphis, Tennessee, or born and raised Memphis, Tennessee, but he's from Memphis, Tennessee. Here
you go.
He had a jug band on Beale Street, made a bunch of recordings in the early 30s, late 20s, early 30s. He made his last recordings on Stax Records. And he played, blues, finger-picking banjo, three-finger. So I kind of got some of that stuff under my hands, and so now I've been opening up to my finger-picking a little bit more.
Have you really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Still bare finger, though?
Yeah, I'm not ready for
Okay.
all that. No. So I do some of that stuff, and there's some. Should I do a finger picking? Should I do some Gus Cannon?
Please, yeah.
There's another banjo player named Sidney Stripling, who we only have a handful of his recordings, and he also did some finger picking work, and I do his version of Coonjine, but that's a whole nother conversation. Another black banjo player. But I'll play a Gus Cannon song. Let's do Jonestown Blues, because it's the one I play the best. I'm in, what is this tuning called?
That'd be drop C, probably.
Yeah, drop C, minstrel tuning. I'm leaving old Beulah, going back to Jonestown. I'm leaving old Beulah, going back to Jonestown. 'Cause these Jonestown women boys help you turn your damper down. Oh, Jonestown, Jonestown, too small a burg for me. Oh, Jonestown, Jonestown, too small a burg for me. I'm gonna leave old Jonestown, go back to Tennessee. Oh, I got back to Memphis, put my banjo down. When I got back in Memphis, put my banjo down. Got drunk on all that good corn liquor, me and my gal did clown.
That's cool. That's for somebody who, to hear you say it, you're just starting with it or dabbling with it, that was some challenging stuff in there. A lot of the single string is what I call it, those runs. Yeah, that's not simple stuff.
This is also not my banjo. I was really feeling that when I started playing. It's like, people who don't know on the radio, but my banjo didn't make it on a flight. Delta had other ideas for my banjo.
Oh no!
So this is a borrowed banjo. But
is that still being sorted out, or is it accounted for, or what's the?
I am here in Lansing, Michigan, home of Elderly Instruments.
Right.
And as soon as I brought it in, he was like, "We got you. We can take care of it right now. You'll have it by the morning. We're going to work on it." I mean, I went in there freaking out, and they talked me off a ledge and calmed me down, and they're going to fix my banjo. So tomorrow morning it'll be ready to go.
Oh,
But it's just funny, like, I play that song pretty well, but I'm just like working on a banjo that's new to me.
Just disoriented enough, yeah.
But I appreciate the compliment. Sorry. Thank you very much. I'm glad you liked the playing.
Yeah.
I will also say that this banjo has metal strings on it, and I've been playing with Nile gut strings now for a couple years. During the shutdowns, for like a week or 3 months. Remember, time was different then. But I decided I was going to learn classic banjo stuff, and so I put Nile gut strings on my my main banjo is a Deering Vega. It's their version of the Vega series. So I put Nile gut strings on that one, and I try to do my And then I changed my mind about that and just decided I liked the Nile gut for claw hammering. So
those squirrels just keep running past you and you keep chasing after them. Want to talk about black people stuff?
Please.
Okay. So from my perspective, over the last 10, 15 years or so, we've seen kind of an increased awareness about black string band music, largely due to folks like you who are actually like out there playing it. And then on a related topic, there seems to be a lot of more scholarship about like the banjo's history. There's like several books on it and stuff that have all come out like relatively recently. And I don't know if you get into like a lot of that early banjo roots stuff, but I'm wondering like to what degree do you view your performance to have like an educational aspect to it? Is that one of your goals in your performances, is to like educate people?
Yeah. We were talking a little bit earlier about me, when I first started playing the banjo, being like, I'm the only person playing the banjo. And I didn't know festivals existed, didn't know fiddle competitions existed. None of this. The Chocolate Drops formed meeting at the Black Banjo Gathering in North Carolina, in Boone, North Carolina. Scholars, musicians, people coming together to talk about the black roots of the banjo. They did 2 of them. I made it to the second one. And there was a time where that scholarship was not happening. And there was a time where I could be in a room with 4 other black banjo players,
Yeah.
And Jesus, this is 20 years ago now.
Yeah.
And we've come to a place where, I was at the IBMA's year before last, and we had all panel of black old-time musicians and banjo players at the IBMA's, International Bluegrass Museum, for the first time. All my banjo students are black people. I'm involved in the Black Banjo and Fiddle Fellowship. I'm involved in the Black Banjo Reclamation Project. Things that did not exist when I first touched the banjo.
Yeah, it's incredible.
So it's amazing to have this, I don't know if I want to say renaissance, but this resurgence, this return to the instrument and to the ideas around what is, the same awakenings I had. What does it mean that the banjo is a black instrument, right? What does that mean for our narrative as a country? What does it mean about our culture? How do we develop what we've ignored, what we tried to ignore, what we didn't teach, what we unteach? All of that is wrapped in playing this instrument and holding that instrument for me as a black person. So I just feel very thankful to, I think be a part of that renaissance,
Yeah.
So, and then for the second part of your question about the educational aspects, when I was playing in Chocolate Drops, we were just like, the banjo's a black instrument. We just have to get that out there, you know? And over time, it became like, what else can we put around this? For me, when Freddie Gray was killed and, that other wave of talking about police brutality, it became important for me to make sure that my performances, my shows were not a place where people were not thinking about that. We're not thinking about the injustice and the oppression that black people have to deal with in America and have had to deal with since we were forced to come here. And how that is attached to the music that we all love in some way. The roots of this instrument, the roots of American popular music are rooted in the slave trade and the oppression of black people in this country, period. I think it makes the music better. Sometimes people find it very offensive and distracting. But I didn't want my show to be a place where we don't talk about that sort of thing. And so I was able to move beyond, but like also add to the banjo being a black instrument, like, hey, Why do we have so many prison songs in the blues repertoire? Well, let me talk to you about their creation of the prison system after the Compromise of 1877 and blah, blah, blah. Why do we have, tell us about the dirty songs. Where did these dirty songs come from? Well, hey, sexual liberation might have been happening in the 1920s in this way, and we had a lot of homosexual representation and blah, blah, blah. What about joy? There's a way to bring in all these other things and connect it to what we have today and connect it to our experiences today. So education's a really big thing for me. Edutainment. I grew up with PBS. I know how to do it, I think. So educating and growing and, history is important. And, a tree can't stand without roots. And I don't think a country can either. So I think that's my mission.
You do a great job of accomplishing that. And I'm really happy that you seem to be embracing it, because I could definitely see a situation where you might resent having to feel like you're a spokesperson or like it's your job to entertain people. Like, we don't get to go to see rock bands and expect to be explained about who Eric Clapton is or where the Stratocaster came from.
Well, maybe they should at a couple of these shows explain. No, just
maybe they should.
But I understand your point. Go ahead.
It's kind of a burden for you to take on. So I'm glad that you don't resent having to in a way do other people's homework for them and you just want to play some songs. But it's cool that you are embracing it, because you are a good spokesperson for it. But I wasn't sure where your mind was in terms of whether you enjoyed that aspect of what you bring to the stage.
This could be a whole nother hour of a conversation.
Yeah.
I really like playing old-timey music and talking about Black people. I enjoy it very, very much. And a lot of my shows, I do just play music and just play the songs and enjoy playing and dig into, maybe on some nights I'm like, I'm going to talk about Black, I might dig into certain areas, but, a lot of times I do want to just play music. I think I have more freedom now because there are more Black performers out there. Now there is Kaya Cater. Now there is Jake Blunt. Now there is Jerron Paxson. Now there is, what's his homeboy, Trey Wellington. Now there, and of course, Layla McCalla and Dom and Ree, people are out there. I can feel a little more freedom to kind of, I'm just going to do a couple of silly songs. I'm going to do this.
Okay.
But you're making me think, I'm thinking on the fly. I'll say two more things. One, sometimes it can be burdensome. Sometimes you can play for people and you can, I might be in a room and I can do my spiel and give all my speech and people can say, okay, I've done the work now. And I'm done. And because I went to the Hubby show and I heard all this, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's, they might, in an hour, might remember one thing. But, my goal is for people to take it home with them, right? Understand the roots of things that you love. Understand the roots of things you don't love. Understand the roots of things around you. When you hear the roots of this music, it should enrich the listening experience. Understanding what the heck fascism is makes you understand a lot of things about today. Understanding what racism is makes you understand a lot about what's happening today. Understanding, where this music comes from makes you understand the singers and the stories and the music and the lyrics a lot better. And so I hope that people can take that from a show. And then the last thing I'll say is I'm a big fan of a musician named Fela Kuti. Do you know who that is?
Yeah.
Fela Kuti invented a genre of music called Afrobeat.
Yeah.
From Nigeria. And I love his music very much. All of his music is political. All of his music has something to say. When he's younger, he's a few songs that are about making love. They're also very good. Napoi, I'm talking about. But there's an interview with him where they ask him about that. And he's like, if I go to England or whatever, these people might have the luxury to sing about other things. But in Nigeria, where we're dealing with corruption, where we've just come out of a civil war, where there are people living in extreme poverty, I don't have that luxury. I have to be a part of this because we are struggling. We're, and so with our history and our freedoms and stuff being under attack, it feels like it's the responsibility to talk about. Yeah. I don't have the absolute freedom to not, I think. And so I think that's where I'm coming from. And I don't think that's where I'm coming from. That's where I'm coming from. Did that make sense? Was that too long of an answer?
No, I love hearing about that. And yeah, even to what you said, even if they go to a show and all they hear is Banjo Came from Africa, that might be more than someone knew who thought that the banjo got invented in 1945 or something.
Yeah, by Earl Scruggs.
By Earl Scruggs. And that's as much as they have thought about it. That's one more piece than they knew going in. And if you can do that, I guess it's a
If it opens,
it's a win.
I want it to crack the door. I want to open the door. I want to plant the seed. You do what you can. It's also part of why I do a lot of like kid show, not kid shows, but like I'll go to schools and you hope you get a kid to critically think. And, I also just really like playing the banjo. So.
Hear, hear. Have you heard that new Fela podcast series by Jed Abumrad?
I didn't even know from Radiolab?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, it's like a 10-part. It's incredible.
It's like made for me.
do you know the story about his song? What is it called? Weird Shit or something like that? Or
That's the one where he ate a bunch of weed. Yeah, I do know that one.
And the cops had to. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a whole.
Good for them.
That's a different story. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that song.
No, I'll show you what I'm talking about. In a minute. But
and I'm driving a lot, so this will be helpful.
Oh, it'll be perfect. Yeah.
What are some of my favorite Fela songs, would be Coffin for Head of State, which is a great song about, we're getting dark now, but he lived in a compound with his many wives. He had multiple wives. It was kind of like I don't want to say like a hippie commune, but they were like these outside.
A lot of people in and out.
Yeah. And because of his music and his influence, he had to deal with the police and the soldiers a lot. And so they raided his camp at some point, and a lot of people were brutalized and attacked. His mother was thrown out of a window, and when she died, he did a protest and carried her coffin to the military barracks, Coffin for Head of State. Great song, beautiful song, very powerful. I don't know. We could go on and on about Fela for another hour, but I just, I think also during the Iraq War Part 2, when I was coming up, getting out of high school and starting to play this music and play traditional American music, there were no pop songs about it. Country lost its mind and ran with it. They had songs about it. Where Were You When the Buildings Fell is one of my favorites. I'm also a big fan of I Rock, I Rack 'Em Up, and I Roll, Clint Black. But we didn't have any pop songs about it. We're living in a time now. There are no pop songs about what's happening right now. When Kendrick Lamar and Drake were having their big beef, Macklemore put out a song about what was happening in Gaza. No one else did. So I think during these times, people will gravitate towards folk music, towards older forms of music to find like what, I was going to say what is true and what is right. I don't know if that's too much of an opinion to have, but like, the voice of the people. Have a voice of the people. I'll put it that way.
I think Springsteen has a song, by the way. I don't know if you saw that.
Thank God.
Good.
Thank goodness. Thank you. That's why he's the boss. That's why he's the boss. Favorite Boss song?
Mine? Oh, man. Let me think. Hungry Heart?
Ooh, Hungry Heart's good. Yeah.
How about you?
I'm a Thunder Road man.
I like The Boss. I don't know if I love The Boss, but
we'll talk about it later.
Good for him.
I guess the doors are opening in 20 minutes. Should I play something really quick to wrap it up?
Go for it. Give us one more.
Well, I have to think of a song to play now. Okay. I'll end on this version that comes from Jimmy Struthers. It's a version of Cripple Creek that he calls Hear My Banjo Say. I'm an open G. My banjo say, going up Cripple Creek, going down, leave Cripple Creek, man alone. Roll my bridges above my knees, shrub my jelly with who I please. Thought I heard my banjo say, going up Cripple Creek, leave Cripple Creek. Nickels with the meat, downs with the Lord, leaving town, cause times are hard. Banjo say, going up Cripple Creek, going down, leaving Cripple Creek, bound to Rome. Drinking whiskey and drinking beer, don't let sundown catch you here.
Thank you so much, Hubby.
Thanks for having
That was
me, man.
wonderful.
Thank you.
All right, folks, that's all we have for this episode of the Picky Fingers Banjo Podcast. You heard some song clips, though, and in order, they were Banjo Sam by Hubby Jenkins, Devil Got My Woman by Skip James, They're Red Hot by Robert Johnson, Trouble in Your Mind by the Carolina Chocolate Drops, Pumpkin Pie by Joe Thompson, Bird Song by the Holy Modal Rounders, and Rofaro Fight by Fela Kuti. Very special thanks once again to the VIP supporter of the show, that's Lee Burlick. Become a supporter yourself. Please go to patreon.com/banjopodcast. It means a lot to have your support, and it's only a few dollars per month, and you get additional rewards. Patreon.com/banjopodcast. Email the show, pickyfingersbanjopodcast@gmail.com. Hope to hear from you there, and hope to see you next time.
It's like I said, I'm the greatest banjo player of all time. What?